그래요? 아,
이제 웨비나로 전환했어요.
네.
네, 입장하실 수 있게.
그럼 저는 이제 조용히 보도록 하겠습니다. 좋은 강의 부탁드립니다. 감사합니다.
네, 감사합니다.
네.
와주셔서 감사합니다.
저 잠깐 총영사님 지금 방에 가서 뭐가 문제인지 한번 확인해 보고 오겠습니다.
네. 음.
So it's 4 o'clock, and we'll begin the symposium now. Thank you for joining Korean American Energy Association's annual symposium. Today, we'll be discussing EV retrofit business in the US and Korea, and featuring Professor Sam Min, Professor of Marketing at California State University, Long Beach, and President of KAEA, James Fleischman, CEO and owner of Flash Drive Motors, and Director Tae-hee Lee from Korea Automotive Technology Institute's Premium Vehicle R&D Center. We'll start with opening remarks from the president of KAEA, Professor Sam Min.
Good morning to those who are joining from Korea, and good afternoon, those in the United States. On behalf of Consulate General of the Republic of Korea in LA and Korean American Energy Association, I welcome each and every of you. Korean American Association, KAEA, was founded 4 years ago to promote the cooperative relationship between the United States and Korea in the energy sector, in particular, new and renewable energy. I have been serving KAEA as an advisor for the last 3 years, and I'm very honored to serve KAEA as a president this year. I'd like to express my sincere thanks to Kim Young-hwan, Consul General, for complete trust on and generous support for KAEA. I also want to thank Joseph Kim, the founder and the former president of KAEA, for his continuing guidance and support for KAEA. The theme of KAEA Symposium this year is EV conversion business in the United States and Korea. Recently, EV conversion has got a lot of attention, both in Korea and the United States. I'll be presenting the outlook of EV conversion business, and James Fleshman, CEO of Flash Drive Motors, will give a talk about EV conversion business practices in the United States. And Dr. Tae-hee Lee will talk about EV conversion business in Korea and its policy in Jeonnam Province, Korea. I thank both speakers for their time to share their expertise today. Again, welcome everyone. Thank you.
And now we'll hear from Young-hwan Kim, the Consul General of the Korean Consulate General in Los Angeles.
Good afternoon for those in Los Angeles and Texas here in the United States. And good morning for those in Seoul, Jeonnam, and Korea. My computer has some problem. Sorry about a little bit delay. First of all, I warmly welcome all of you to today's 2022 Online Energy Symposium, co-hosted by the Consulate and the Korean American Energy Association. Taking this opportunity, let me express my gratitude to the KAEA for joining us in holding this meaningful and timely seminar. I have every confidence that today's seminar will serve as a great opportunity to introduce EV retrofit business environment in the United States to the companies attending here today. To the Korean people, California has been well known for its wonderful weather, film industry, and tourism. But this is partly true. I have to add one more thing. California has a big strength, which is green energy industry. California's green energy sector continues to lead the nation in terms of innovation and growth rate, with 35% of electricity sales being delivered through renewable energy sources. Recently, we have also witnessed many progressive clean energy policies, such as a ban on the sale of new gasoline vehicles from 2035, and California's 100% Clean Energy Act, which targets 60% renewable energy by 2030, and make commitment to 100% zero carbon energy supply by 2045. In line with this trend, EV conversion business is rapidly growing here in California and the United States, where the vehicle remodeling culture is quite prevalent. And I believe it is not a coincidence that many of best EV conversion companies found their home here in California. In Korea, the public sector is quite active in facilitating the development of EV conversion business. For example, a special regulatory free zone was recently established in South Jeolla provinces, where the government-funded Korean Automotive Technology Institute plans and implements a 2-year pilot project to establish driving safety standards in EV retrofit business. I think our planet's climate crisis has truly been a challenge to us, but at the same time, this challenge has opened a new opportunity for the green energy industry as we witness the rise of EV conversion business. As our two presidents indicated in their joint statement after the summit this May, one of the key pillars of our comprehensive strategic alliance is collaboration in the energy sector, including deploying clean energy technology. While the previous joint efforts to address climate change were well coordinated and well executed, our two countries still have lots of work to do together in prospering clean energy sector. In this vein, information sharing and network building, like today's event, will be truly helpful for even greater feats of teamwork. Once again, I thank KAEA and Mr. Sam Min, President of KAEA, for bringing many important people and organizations together. And I hope today's seminar will be able to consolidate the already strong cooperation in the energy sector between the two countries, leading to ever great outcomes. Thank you. Thank you very much. Have a good seminar. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll hear from Jose Munoz, head of Hyundai Motors Americas region, who sent us a congratulatory message on video.
It is my honor to welcome you to the 2022 Energy Symposium highlighting EV retrofit business between the United States and the Republic of Korea. This important event I would like to thank Young-Wan Kim, the Consul General of the Republic of Korea in Los Angeles, Dr. Sam Min, Chairperson of the Korean American Energy Association, Sung-Sik Na, Chairperson of Korea Automotive Technology Institute, and those companies supporting the webinar today. This is an exciting time for technology and the automotive industry. Automobile manufacturing is seeing innovation at a scale never seen before. There is now a rapid transformation for vehicles with enhanced technology. Interest in electric vehicles continues to grow significantly, and consumers have many choices and will have even more in the future. Strong support from our leaders in Korea is an important driver for our success. For the first time ever, Hyundai Motor Group ranked third in sales for the first half of this year. The United States is also an expanding and critical market for EVs. Hyundai Motor Group is committed to driving EV technology in the US, and our recent announcement of $10 billion of investment for EV manufacturing in Georgia and Alabama will strengthen our ability to provide world-class products and innovation. We are dedicated to EV technology as part of our mission to bring progress for humanity. Hyundai Motor Group is continuously reviewing options to accelerate the adoption of electrification. In line with this approach, Hyundai will continue its efforts to introduce zero-emission vehicles equipped with industry-leading hydrogen fuel cell and EV technologies. I am excited for you to learn more about the growing business of electric power vehicles and their technology. Thank you again, and I wish you great success as you prepare for the future of sustainable mobility.
Okay, now we'll start the first session. You can expect each speaker to have the floor for about 30 minutes, and we'll conduct a 5-minute Q&A at the end of each session. If you have any questions during the webinar, please type them into the chat window, and we'll address them during the Q&A. Sam Min is Professor of Marketing at California State University, Long Beach. Sam is currently President of Korean American Energy Association. He is also chairperson of Genesis Bio and Energy. His expertise is in renewable energy, innovation, and marketing strategies. He has presented Hydrogen Economic Outlook and policy suggestions for cooperations in the field of new and renewable energy between Korea and United States in the KAEA Energy Symposiums and International Conference.
Thanks, Chloe. I'm Sam Min. Thanks for introducing me nicely. I'll be talking about the EV conversion business and its future in the United States. I'm professor of marketing, so I'm going to talk more about the market side of the demand side of EV conversion market. Today's talk, I'm going to give more of a positive view about the EV conversion business. If I give some overview, I would say EV conversion market in the United States already started, is in place. And I think the market EV conversion business will take off eventually. And the peak of the market will be around 2035. And I'm going to go over one by one so that I could say how the bright future of EV conversion business in the United States. First, I'd like to tell you that EV adoption is accelerating. When you see the left figure, it shows the predictions of EV adoption, sales of EV adoption by BCG Consulting. In 2018, they predicted EV car sales, new car sales will account for 21% of sales in 2030. But 2 years later, they changed it to 26% by 2030. And 2 years later, in 2020, BCG predicted 42% of EV car sales. So this is a big jump. And again, this year, 2022, they changed their prediction of EV adoption sales to 53%. This is global EV sales adoption. So what I'm saying is EV adoption, your prediction of EV adoption is kind of moving target. People thought that this is about 21%. However, nowadays it's more than 50% of EV car sales by 2030. And also with the right side of the figure, it shows the figure of Bloomberg NEF prediction of EV car sales by 2030. This one was published in September 20.
Okay.
September 20. And what you can see is, there's a big jump again. Previously, their outlook was about the 40% of EV car sales by 2030. But September this year, they raised their prediction from 40% to over 50% of EV car sales in the United States. But whole point is, if you look at the EV adoption statistics, a couple of years ago, you're off the target. It's kept changing. It's accelerating. At this time, the EV sales account for more than a little bit. I think over 5% now. But I think it's going to be more than 50% by 2030. So what really makes these things change? I think first thing is the California banned the sales of internal combustion engine vehicle car sales by 2035. California governor announced it in 2020, about 2 years ago. And then the other state actually followed the California footsteps, and China also followed, and the European Union also followed. These days, most of the European Unions and China promised that they're gonna ban the internal combustion engine vehicle by 2035. And also there is a lot of government subsidies. Inflation Reduction Acts was introduced August 2022 this year. I think this one attribute to the sales forecast increase by Bloomberg from 40 to above 50% in the United States. And also we see a lot of industry disruptions by innovative startup companies. Tesla was very successful manufacturing EV cars, and many of consumers got satisfied with their performance, their price point. So everything is really disrupted incumbent automakers. And of course, the environmental issue is a continuing problem. The point is, the thing is, the United States is not on track to meet its 2025 or 2030 climate goals. United States, promised that by 2030, they're going to lower their greenhouse emission by 50% below about 25% in 2005. But as you can see, this is no way to get it at this time. With the current policy, I think there is no way United States could reduce greenhouse gas emission up to 50% below, below 2005 level. I think this is a problem. This is the prediction by as of July 2022. Perhaps, thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act, maybe things get better sooner. But anyway, at this time, it's really difficult to get it. Another thing I'd like to show you is transportation actually accounts for the greatest greenhouse emission in the United States as of now. As you can see, when I look at the data several years ago, actually transportation was the second greatest in the sector for a greenhouse gas emission in the United States. Number one was always electric power generation. That was actually in 2005 it was account for about 35%, but nowadays it's only 25%. The electric utility company actually, they converted their fossil fuel to renewable energy aggressively, and they met their goal. However, transportation couldn't have much progress. So in theory, if transportation sector convert to electric vehicles, we could actually get the goal of the 50% of the reduction of greenhouse emission by 2030. So I think this is one of the reasons we can think about why EV adoption is needed and government is pay attention to it. So we think that thanks to the accelerating EV adoption, EV sales will account for over 50% of new car sales in 2030. This is great news. However, the problem we have is EV cars will be only 10% by 2030 on the road. I think this is because the problem will have is there is a lock-in, the lock-in with internal combustion engine vehicles for so many car owners. Typical Americans, when they buy a new car, actually the lifetime, they use the car 11.5 years. So what that means is, at that time anyway, even though new car sales will be more than 50%, about 90% will be non-EVs by 2030. I think this is one of the big problems. So if I could think about what could be the market potential of EV conversion business in the United States, we could do simple math. Please allow me go over these numbers with you. So in the United States, we have at the time, by the 2030, we're going to have about 259 million cars. US population is about the 320 million. So, in theory anyway, we have a lot of cars in the United States. And we predict to sell about 26 million EVs, which is about 50% of EVs by 2030. But this is only 10%. So remaining, 259 minus the 26 million, that is 225 million cars will be non-electric vehicles in the United States in 2030. So, if we assume that 1% will do EV conversion at the time, 2030, market potential is probably 2.25 million EV conversions in 2030. I think this is an amazing number. And also, if we take into account average cost of EV conversion, is at this time EV conversion rate is the cost is $10,000 to $20,000. So if we do this multiply all these numbers, we could estimate EV conversion market, and by 2030 will be 22.5 billion to $45 billion. This is an annual figure. But if it is 2% of adoption, then I think this number will double. And at this time, I didn't take into account, I only consider the light duty vehicles, which is cars and light trucks. But how about buses? The heavy duty vehicles, large and medium size, and the fleets, trucks, large trucks. Then conversion market, EV conversion market could be bigger than this. This is a figure predicted by the Boston Consulting Group. By 2030, as you can see, United States, I think we are not going to see, most of states will follow California. Actually, New York already followed. Many other states already followed the 2035 ban of sales of internal combustion engine. And the same thing in the European Union, in China. So when I think about this, I think 2035 will be critical year for EV conversion business. I think in year 2035, many of consumers will be surprised to see the internal combustion engine vehicles are not available in the market. Of course, this is a new car sales. Probably they will end up buying used cars if they want to. So I think this is a critical time. So my prediction is, this is a time, only 20 or 30% will be EV cars on the road by 2035. And about 70% or 80% of internal combustion engine vehicles might be on the road until, they'll be, until they're broken, not fixable. And I think they have to think about converting their vehicle to electric vehicle. So the EV conversion market in the United States will peak around 2035. And I think it will be very active until 2050. During I talk, if you have any question, please write anything in the chat box. Okay, EV conversion market today. I think that the EV conversion market is at this time in the United States is infancy, mostly at a prototype stage or production of limited series of based on pre-orders. And we'll hear more about the practices and business practices by James after me. And most conversions are done by individuals or small conversion shops using conversion kits. And startups have recently emerged with the objective to develop scale economies. In this slide, I'm not going to go over those companies, but I'm going to make this slide available. At the end of slide, you will see the list of key players of EV conversion business in the world. And this is another analysis. I did a Google trend analysis. I like to see what I was public attention, public interest in EV conversion. So when you look at the how many people search for EV conversion in Google search, the blue line shows their search number, frequency of search last 5 years. It's still low. It's still low. However, anyway, it's growing. Actually, this year, the searching word of EV conversion in the United States has been significantly grown. And when I compare this with EV, in a search word of EV is really a lot. So public interest in the EV conversion is far less than EV, 38 times more interest in EV than EV conversion last 12 months. However, when I look at compare this with a fuel cell vehicle, I think, as you can see, the fuel cell vehicle is indicated with the red lines here. Actually, there is more of a search, more of search on EV conversion than fuel cell vehicle. This is 5 times more search on EV conversion than fuel cell vehicle. So this is the public interest. I think people are interested in EV conversion these days. The EV conversion market in the United States at this time, the first market is classic cars. Classic cars has to be repowered. After 10 years, maybe 20 years for the classic cars, they have to repower their powertrain. But one of attractive option is EV conversion instead of replacing their transmission and engines. Sometimes the engines and transmissions are not available for many of classic cars. So in the classic car sector has been already started, and many of EV conversion businesses, their market is for classic cars. And one thing interesting, I think the other two speakers will tell more about it. United States, the U.S. Department of Energy already have emission and safety regulations. They are already in place. So regulations are already done, and many of them actually doing this EV conversion. Car conversion has been very active in the United States. So the market is already there. Second market I could envision is the trucks and buses in the individual vehicles. There is a zero emission mandate. I think that this will be really big impact on trucks, EV conversion of trucks with the heavy duty the vehicles. For instance, Port of Long Beach, they announced that they're gonna only allow the electric vehicles, either the hydrogen or the pure electric vehicles. Only electric vehicles will enter Port of Long Beach, by 2035. This is about the same year that California banned the sales of fossil fuel, the internal combustion engine vehicles. So at that time, probably there will be a lot of pressure to converting the trucks when they have it. It's they have the life durations to make their business run. But if the manual port the band the traffic, then I think they will end up doing some EV conversion. And the third market is, I think, could be probably after 2030. Many of probably after 35. Many of the car owners will think about converting when they find some difficulties in gas stations, when they found that the parts are not, their parts are not available, then probably they will consider converting their vehicle to electric engines. So I think in this sequence, you will see some market development in the United States. But I think the sky is not a limit. Actually, I observed that there is some trend that some effort going on to electrifying planes. There is this is called eVTOL, electric vertical takeoff, tail landing, and short haul. The flight. They have some pressure, and also to converting their plane to electric version. And also some industries already think that this is more cost-effective way of running their business. And sooner or later, I think that next year or in 2 years, we'll see retrofitted aircraft flying in the sky in the United States. Another EV conversion market in the United States we have to pay attention to is manufacturing. EV conversion kits. The global automotive retrofit electric vehicle powertrain market was valued about $59 billion in 2021. So this market is already active, and it is estimated to grow at 7.1% from 22 to 2031. And the global automotive retrofit electric vehicle powertrain market is projected to reach its value of 17.9 billion by the end of 2031. Then another question I have is, will California provide rebate for EV conversion? At this time, California doesn't provide any rebate for EV conversion. So, of course, federal government doesn't provide any EV conversion rebate either. But however, the other states already provide rebates for EV conversion. So you will see the slide from Dr. Lee's presentation today. But my question is, the California will provide any rebates soon? Yes, I think so. They are working on, the California Assembly is working on a rebate program. It's called AB 2350 Vehicle Air Pollution Zero Emission Aftermarket Conversion Project. One thing they are considering is they are considering to give $2,000 of rebate for EV conversion. I think sooner or later we're going to see this in the ballot. We will see this is coming. And some argument that a federal government and California state should provide subsidies and rebate is the following. Number one, they said, especially California said, you are going to not sell any electric conversion vehicle by 2035. They cannot do this, not providing incentives, not providing any rebates. I think they have to provide it. Otherwise, if they force that, the banning of, forcing the banning of sales of the cars, I think that doesn't make sense. So I think that this is number one. Second thing is EV conversion is more efficient way of reducing greenhouse gas emission. According to our study, EV conversion is 38% more carbon efficient than purchasing a new electric vehicle. And also third argument we could make is the job creations. EV conversion is at this time labor intensive. So probably government will think about providing rebates or subsidies for their, those who wants to buy those who wants to do the EV conversion. Maybe they might provide subsidies for EV conversion business. Now, I think this is, the business opportunities of EV conversion for us, not the United States, for us and you and me. Okay, Korean American business and those listening to my talk in South Korea. We have to think about, this could be an opportunity for all of us. This is a new business idea for those who want to do EV related business. EV manufacturing is, heavy, it requires heavy investment, but EV conversion is not. people say this is, California thinking about providing a lot of incentives for manufacturing. Probably we could take advantage of the funding from government, state governments. So I think this could be some opportunities. Another thing, another opportunity is the EV conversion is alternative of auto repair service businesses. As EV car adoption increases, suppose most of people have EV cars. EV cars doesn't need much repair, doesn't need much service. It doesn't need oil change. So I think this could be an alternative of auto repair service, and in the long run. And maybe at this time, it could be an opportunity for expansion of auto repair services. So I think we have to think about it. And the EV conversion market is highly regulated I would say relatively more regulated in Korea than the United States. Whereas EV conversion regulations are relatively lax in the United States. There might be opportunity to import conversion kits from Korea and do EV conversion business in California. I have conclusions. This is the last slide of my talk. Number one, EV conversion market will take off. This time, this is less than 1%, but I think the EV conversion market will take off as a solution for locked-in EV internal combustion engine vehicle owners. And the second, EV conversion demand will peak when the sales of internal combustion engine vehicles will be banned in 2035 in the United States and will last active till 2050. And auto repair shops will need to prepare for industry disruption from ICE vehicles to EV transition. I think they have to consider EV conversion business first now, and later, I think they have to think about EV retrofit business later. First I titled this talk as outlook of EV retrofit business, but I changed it because the meaning of EV conversion is different from EV retrofit. My concept, what I'm thinking about is, after the EV cars used by 10 years, they have to retrofit. My point is their motor should be replaced. Their battery should be replaced. I think this is what I'm saying. Perhaps in the long run, I'm envisioning that many of EV car owners might think about retrofitting their pure electric vehicle to pure cell electric powered vehicle. Anyway, there are a lot of opportunities. I think as EV market becomes mainstream, it becomes market share of EV becomes more than 50%. Probably many other different types of differentiated services will emerge. So I think the first EV conversion and later EV retrofit business will be the possible and could be a big business. And the last one is federal and state government will need to, and they have to, provide rebate as they prepare for banning new IC vehicles, banning of new IC vehicle sales. I think this is the end of my talk. This is about 30 minutes. So let me check if I have questions.
Okay. So we got 3 questions. First one, from a consumer's point of view, will there be any benefits in converting their cars to EV than purchasing a brand new EV?
I think the first one is the cost-effective way, but I think it might take time. Second thing is now, the classic cars, as I told you, they have to, but the main market, what a mainstream market of EV conversion will probably come about 2030 or 2035 when there is some rebates. when the mass scale of manufacture of conversion kits available in the market.
Okay, second
Thank you.
question, it might have been answered already, but current US government to provide grant to purchase new EV cars in US market. Do you think EV conversion business section might be covered by grant program nearby in the future?
Yeah, as I already told you, some states already provide EV conversion rebates, but not California. But I think California, maybe in it's hard to say, within few years, I would say, within few years, I think we'll have a EV conversion rebate for EV conversion, rebate for EV conversion. And the federal government, I think at this time that the federal government is supporting more on the union-based car manufacturers. But I think maybe 2 years later, I don't know, federal government might provide some rebates as well.
Okay, then third question, is California the only one that promotes and attracts EV conversion businesses? What about other states such as Georgia,
Oh,
Tennessee, Michigan?
Yeah, actually, that you will see the slide. I saw the Dr. Lee slide, and he will present 9 states who already provide a rebate for EV conversion as of now.
Okay. Last question, not last question, another question. So EV retrofit is different than EV conversion. EV retrofit, you mean modifying and updating current EV?
Yes, that's what I'm conceptualizing. So at first, when I take this symposium, I thought EV retrofit is words, but when I study more about it, research about it, I think EV conversion is different from EV retrofit. So actually, at this time, EV retrofit will be a new industry in the long run.
Okay. Last question. I would like to ask about how prepared the EV conversion industrial law is by US federal and states.
I think one thing interesting is it might be a US, American tradition. The modifying cars has been allowed in the United States already. One biggest concern was emission. They have to go through emission test, and they have to go to safety test, actually 2 parts. But United States is kind of the land of freedom. So, individual freedom was, so valued. So actually individuals, they had been doing conversion already. So if you do YouTube search, you could find some of them brag about, I converted my vehicle to EV, and they, anyways. So, the small cars, they do it already. So regulations, it's already in place in the United States.
Okay, I think, yeah.
I think the time is up. Yeah.
Okay. So now,
Thank you.
thank you, Professor Zimmerman. Now we have James Fleischman of Flash Drive Motors. James comes from a family of gearheads. After graduating with a degree in computer science and mathematics, James started his career in software engineering, spending his days developing software, but always dreaming of returning to his classic car roots. Converting cars to electric provided the perfect blend of mechanics and software. James, along with his brother Daniel, now use these skills to save the world, one classic car electric conversion at a time. James? You can share your screen.
And share. Okay, do you see me?
Not yet. I don't see your screen yet.
Okay, let's get this going.
Okay, I can see it.
There you go. Okay. All right. So Yeah, I would say my presentation will be a little different than a lot of them you'll see, because I'm focusing a little bit on the practical side, on the here's what we're doing in the EV conversion business right now, and kind of how it's going to drive later. So yes, I am James Fleischman of Flash Red Motors. I own it with my brother. We started this in 2020. The idea behind starting the classic cars, I mean, will become more obvious as I go through the slides, but it's as referred to before, it's market one, right? We have to start somewhere, and we start with these classic cars because they are I'd say a lower hurdle to jump over to start getting electric conversions on the road. So we started this, basically during the pandemic. So while everyone was locked at home, everyone had a lot of free time. They had a lot of time to start looking at new hobbies, starting new businesses. 2020 was the largest growth prior to the 2020 was the largest growth year from 2019 for any prior year. 2020 was a huge year for new businesses to start. Reason being is people found themselves at home. They found themselves working remotely. Commutes were no longer a thing. There were, so you had this time to where you could get off work and just walk out into your garage, walk out into your office, do what you wanted to do on the side. So normally I ask, what did you learn during the pandemic? A little more interactive, but in this case, you could tell me afterwards. But there's a lot it's a similar story all across the US, especially when stores were closed, you couldn't go anywhere. So yeah, you started getting new ideas. So obviously the idea that we came up with was to convert these cars to electric. A little bit of odd story behind it is that we were actually holdouts to electric. Like a lot of it, this is one of those things I'll address a little later, is there is an attitude driven by multiple factors in this country, in the US, that electric is, something that a lot of people who are interested in classic cars, there's not a lot of overlap. There's actually significant pushback to EV. Kind of like was alluded to before about America, the US and freedom. Like some of these things are viewed as mandates, such as requiring cars to become electric, can be viewed as stripping away certain freedoms we have, especially when coming to vehicle modification. Vehicle modification has been a major thing in the United States since vehicles were made. Hot rodding has always been a thing, taking a car, making it go faster, doing what you want. And the US has always been fairly lax in regulations on that, pretty free to do what we want to cars. So there is a fear within that community that cars will become something more of an appliance, that you won't be allowed to touch it. Or even if you are allowed, you won't be able to, you won't have the skills because it's too complicated once you go electric. So we talked about this a lot. We talked about whether electric is really going to stick around. I can tell you, even a couple of years ago, the idea that electric would take over as fast as it has, I think it was still foreign to a lot of people. It was still a very new concept that you could have an electric vehicle, you could drive it every day. And the notion of converting an older car to electric was only done by a few hobbyists in garages. It wasn't something that even looked like it could possibly go mainstream. So honestly, yeah, our minds weren't changed until I bought an electric weed eater. And after trying to get mine started every time, I couldn't ever get it started. And this is a story with classic cars, old cars. And this is why I look at this as phase one. I think it's more than just regulations. I think phase one is we love our classic cars. There's a very large subculture of classic car owners. They want to enjoy their classic cars. They want to drive them. And when you can't start them, when you start having a harder time finding fuel, even the fuel available at pumps now is very hard on classic cars. Fuel that's 15% ethanol is the older cars were not designed to tolerate ethanol, so it tears up their fuel systems. So you already have a problem beyond regulations. You have a problem with cars that are now breaking down because of the fuel that is coming out of pumps. And then you have states like California that are pushing very hard emissions mandates, making it to where these cars, even if you can drive them, if they don't pass the current emission standards, they're basically forced off the road. So that's where this comes from. That's where a lot of this EV, and that's where we come from. We're looking at that. We're trying to change hearts and minds that this is even a good idea. And following that, as more and more people adopt this, it will just grow. It'll grow into where people become more interested in retrofitting their vehicles even before it becomes mandated. Let me go to the next thing here. So really, we have to look at right now with what's on the market, what cars make good EV conversions. First and foremost, most of the shops doing EV conversions are, like as alluded to before, they are smaller shops. They're somewhat hobbyists. They're our story is we were classic car restoration. We did fuel injection swaps, things like that. And we weren't we didn't have a team of R&D team to come up with the products that we needed. It's very much right now a very open greenfield type of industry. There are a lot of products out there. There are not a lot of recipes to put them together, and you have to figure it out. So first rule that we came up with, and obviously these are our rules, these are pretty informal. The first rule we came up with is the car has to be simple. Later model cars, and I define late model as anything 1996 when the OBD2 standard came out and started becoming regulated or mandated. That takes away the simplicity. Newer cars, and this is why it's going to be hard to move on to the last phase of this, of doing everyday cars, because newer cars are very complex. The wiring and the communication between the highly integrated electronics is hard to reverse engineer. It's in order to make a seamless conversion, you would need to reverse engineer these things, make them all work together so that that way you have that way you can drive the car. And it kind of goes on to the last rule that you shouldn't have to explain how to drive the car. So we look for simple. The next one is lightweight. So when it comes to range, weight is everything. I mean, aerodynamics come into play when you get going faster, but it's weight that is going to affect you when you're driving around town. So when you look at cars and you look at for ones that are good conversion candidates, you look at weight. I mean, it's most use of these cars is around town. Most is not highway usage. So like I said, aerodynamics don't come into play that much, but what does come into play is getting the car moving and keeping the car moving. You have friction and you have weight, and the weight is what you absolutely have to look for first. So, that's the next rule. And room for batteries. So this is another reason new cars, like later model cars, are going to be more difficult, and there's going to have to be more creative strategies to convert these. Late model cars, every inch of space is used for something between safety and infotainment systems, insulation. There is very little space in modern day vehicles to put something that didn't come from the factory. Prior to the older cars, mostly in the 50s and 60s types of time frame, they were not concerned with empty space. A car was made to look a certain way, and whatever empty space was there was just there. They were not concerned about efficiency in producing these vehicles. So what you have then is you have a lot of cars from the 50s, 1950s to 1970s that just have a lot of empty space in them. So that empty space, that's where you put batteries. So you're lightweight, you have to be considerate of that, because when you add batteries, you're adding weight, but at least you have places to put them. So the next thing we talked about was manual transmissions. And so this is something that's going to change, and it already is changing. But at the time we were getting started, this wasn't something that was out there. So manual transmission are the most direct way right now. It's the most cost-effective way to take a car and retrofit it electric, is to adapt the motor to a manual transmission. This provides a coupling. This provides an already engineered coupling between the motor and the rear end or CV shafts, which front wheel, rear wheel drive, whichever you have, provides a very direct coupling. It also maintains four-wheel drive, or all-wheel drive vehicles already had it with the use of just one motor. So that's why we say preferably manual transmission. So that's already changing. Motors are coming out. More and more motors are being used in cars that don't require it. There's new motor systems coming out where before your only option was a salvage Tesla motor or a Leaf motor to get rid of the transmission. Options are coming. They're very cost prohibitive at the time, or right now, it's very cost prohibitive to get rid of the transmission in a conversion. So that's why I have that there. And the last rule I talked about a little bit earlier in this slide too is you must be able to drive it like any other car. Having to give instruction sheet or a list of instructions on how to drive a car that you've converted is one of those things that will absolutely cause people to think again about getting an EV conversion. You want these cars to be done, and you want them to be driven. You want them to be driven regularly. You want them to be seen. You want them out in the streets to prove that this is something that is viable. If every time you let someone else drive your car, you have to explain to them, you got to flip this switch, then turn this knob and do all these things, it's obviously it's going to make it adoption much slower. So when we focus on these things, we're focusing on cars that we can convert in a reasonable time frame for a reasonable cost that someone can drive without much consideration that they're driving an electric vehicle. We kind of look at it like almost 90% of our customer base they own some OEM electric vehicle, usually a Tesla. That's most of them have a Tesla, and they expect that same type of experience when they're driving their classic car. And while that's not entirely realistic, we can get closer by doing the conversion right and following these rules. So look at like the short list, and these are just kind of randomly picked cars, but they're cars that we've have experience with, or so you look at these like Volkswagens and BMW, classic BMWs. I mean, a lot of the German cars, frankly, were very good conversion candidates. They had a lot of empty space. They're generally simple engineering as far as the drivetrain goes. So it makes it, for example, a Beetle or like that orange one is a Volkswagen Karmann Ghia. They have a lot of room for batteries. There's a lot of empty space in the front. There's a lot of empty space behind the seat. They're very lightweight. The finished conversion weight on a Beetle is under 2,100 pounds. So, that amount of weight you can get up into the 150 miles of range on a EV conversion in a car. I mean, that's beating some OEM cars right off the bat with your classic car conversion. So it makes it desirable to do so. You can choose between buying an OEM, and frankly, a lot of it comes down to style. A lot of people are very interested in the way their cars look. So it gives them a way to have a car that has a look they're wanting to achieve, but with real usable range. Aerodynamics, like I said, that comes in next when you start getting them faster. But if you look at some of these cars, you can tell they're not the most aerodynamic designs. They were mostly made to look good, and aerodynamics was definitely an afterthought in that. So, and like I said, I'm going from a practical thing. Like if you're trying to start an EV conversion business, these are the questions you're going to have to ask yourself. You're going to have to go, first off, what kind of car am I going to do? Or what kind of car should I do? What if I get a customer and emails me and they have a 2020 Ford F-350 they want converted, it's not very practical. The amount of weight, they're very heavy. They have a lot of features built into them. They're full-size pickups, and because of that, they're going to be hauling things and pulling things. So we strive at this point. We don't want to do conversions that make EV conversions look bad. I mean, that's a very simple way to say it, that you don't want to do something that's not a good idea, because you're going to set back the entire conversion industry if you have poor quality conversions on the streets. People are watching. We have the SEMA event in Las Vegas. That was just 2 weeks ago. A large portion of that event, which is generally a very gasoline-oriented event, was starting being dedicated to electric vehicles. So it tells you people are watching these conversions, and they're deciding whether they're interested in this or not. So it's very important that when conversions are put out there, they're high quality conversions that perform. So yeah, like that does not do a service to the industry doing a car that is a poor EV conversion candidate. And then this is a little bit sidetracked, but based on what on the phase 3, I think it was the target 3 market, like those will come, but I believe they'll only come if we're setting the groundwork by doing quality conversions on suitable cars now. We're not setting it back. So the things we had to decide on, and this is where everyone's going to have to start if you're getting into an EV conversion business. And the best piece of advice I can ever give on this is either build a car yourself or partner up with a shop that builds cars and learn that way. Completed cars sell themselves. When you have completed cars under your belt, you've done conversions before, you will sell a lot more conversions. People want to see a track record. They want to see proof that you can do what you say you're doing. And that's by either doing it yourself, partnering with someone who can do it, and just getting something done. Getting something done you can show off, you can advertise, you can take to car shows. Out of anything we've done, any advertising, anything like that, it's the cars we completed have been what have gotten us more cars and have gotten us, or propelling us, ahead. I mean, when we talk about the numbers and the growth in this industry, I mean, it's very visible. With classic car EV conversions, there was a handful of shops, and there's more being added every day. I field a lot of inquiries wanting to start new businesses. That's our typical audience. Is we're speaking at conferences that are EV conversion shops looking to get started, and they're looking to know what should they do first. So the things you have to decide are motor options. There's a lot of motors out there. There's a lot of different options, and there's more. And I'm obviously am not going to go through all of the options, but just kind of be aware there's a lot of options, and some of them are better, some of them worse for EV conversions. But as the years go by, I mean, as we get close to that 2030 date, I imagine there will be some options, that are all complete drop-in options, that even in late model cars, you can drop them in. They have some kind of integration, especially as OEMs become involved. Ford has their Illuminator package, and GM has the E-Crate. There's these things, packages starting to become available by OEMs that, give you something you can put into a later model car that can potentially integrate. Very important in order if this ever is to become a reality. Battery options, and that's another thing. And there are many battery options, and there's a lot of potential pitfalls in selecting batteries. There are salvage batteries, there's new batteries, there's a lot of battery dealers that are not reputable. That's something you have to navigate in this terrain, is figure out what batteries you're going to get, where you're going to get them, and and what is a warrantable item by you. Chargers is a simpler area now. Actually, there was a lot of charger manufacturers, and though these have been really whittling down to a smaller set. So this isn't the big decision point it was, but as more players into the market, it'll come up again. The J1772 standard has been adopted and everywhere at this point in the US. So you have options where you can plug in. We have the CCS, the DC fast charging that's is starting to be seen in more and more places. The European type 2. Then we have and then the type 1 here that we're starting to see it show up in more places. And there's also CHAdeMO is another one of those. So you have to look at the charging situation, look at where you're going to charge this. Realistically speaking, most of these EV conversions we do are going to spend almost all of their time charging at home. Classic cars are meant to be driven 100 to 150 miles at the most, taken to events, maybe driven to and from work, but for the most part, every time it charges at home. But you don't want to be stuck somewhere without the option to charge because you didn't look at what's available. So yeah, you do want to use a standard port charger so you can charge anywhere and not be stuck. And the last thing is, what don't we know? I mean, there's a lot. I mean, as you start this, there's a growing community of EV conversion shops and forums, places that will help you. So as you're trying to get started, there's reaching out to companies. Conversion kits have been mentioned, and I would say that's important. People have curated parts together They have determined what works together, and they're providing these things, in a kit with instructions that you can get started. You might branch off from there at some point, but it is always good to start with a known formula before you really venture out on your own. That way, because it's important if you are doing conversions for customers. There's one thing doing a car for yourself, but if you are running an EV conversion shop, you need to be confident that the product you're putting out, when you're sending a car, in our case, to other states, most of our cars end up in another state, they get shipped here and there. Servicing these cars will be difficult for us. So they need to make sure we're using standard, parts that are standard between the EV conversion shops, and parts that we know that will function and have warranties back in, things like that. This is all a very important thing when you're trying to, like I said, an EV conversion that's dead on the side of the road just adds fuel to the fire of the people who don't want this to succeed. And there are a lot of people who do not want this industry to take off. So there's a lot of positive. I mean, we have regulation, we have a lot of things going our way. And frankly, this technology is good. It's good and it's growing, but it doesn't mean we aren't fighting a lot of negative stereotypes or negative misconceptions that are coming, especially when you're dealing with classic cars. You're dealing with that, you're dealing with a group that's a little different demographic than what your typical OEM EV buyer is. So some motors, there's a lot of different options. This is not meant to be a comprehensive list. Actually, it's only meant to be kind of an example, but it kind of goes to show this is just 3 of the options of so many that are out there, and you look at them, you think, well, now I've got to make a decision. You've got to look at the AC50 or the Hyper 9 types of motors. And what you see there are motors that are designed to be adapted to a transmission. These are kind of what I would say it's an interim, right? It's our interim phase where we're trying to take the straightest path from gas to electric. And the straightest path is in general adapting a motor to a transmission. So that's what these motors are designed for. Mostly they're made for other purposes and then have been put into this or utilized for EV conversions. But that's their basic design, is they expect to be geared. Where you have the Tesla drive unit, and that's I need to put the Tesla example, but there's these transverse drive units that are more meant for transmissionless options. So the transmissionless options give you a way to, and this is, I think, what the long-term goal is, transmissions to not be in cars. As mentioned before, transmissions are getting harder to find. Finding someone who can fix them, that's becoming more difficult, finding parts for them, especially in classic cars. So as we get out of this phase 1, the manual transmission adaptation type of phase, and start moving to phase 2, that's where these transmissionless options, like Tesla, like the Ford Illuminator, the Stealth Drive. I mean, there's the Cascadia motions. I mean, there's a growing number of motors that are designed for an RPM range and power to where you don't need a transmission. So you have to, that's one of the things though, is when you're choosing a product or you're working with a customer, right? Customers are going to have constraints. They're going to have budget. They're going to have range they're expecting, their performance they're expecting. It basically makes a triangle. It's like a constraint, the triple constraint. It's you increase, in order to increase one thing, you have to increase the others, or you have to, it's like if you want more range, you want more power, you have to, generally it's going to affect your budget unless you shrink one. It's the same in any industry, software engineering, everything has these types of constraints. So batteries are like, so motors are one thing. There's a large number of motors, but there's not so many, it can be overwhelming. I would say the battery side of it can be absolutely overwhelming. There are a lot of different batteries. The oldest conversions were generally lead acid, like this lead acid battery that you see there, like that top left. This was how EV conversions were done, maybe just 10 years ago. I mean, actually even fairly recent EV conversions being done with these types of batteries, which when we talk about EV conversions and trying to build their legitimacy, the problem you can run into is these batteries weren't very good. They don't take a lot of recharging. And this is also a stereotype, and this is totally aside, but this is also a stereotype you're fighting with EV conversion business and with EVs in general, is that when people think of batteries, they think of these batteries in cars. They think of these batteries that they have to replace every 3 years. These batteries wear out. So when you're talking about EVs and you're talking about EV conversions and things like that, the one thing they'll always say is, well, you'll have to replace the battery every few years. And that's because they're associating these lead acid batteries with modern EVs. But it's just not the case. Modern EVs are mostly lithium ion type of batteries, which can take a lot of recharges, can take a lot more abuse. In most cases, like that Tesla module you see on the right, are designed to have thermal management, to where you're keeping their temperatures where they're supposed to be, to where they last longer. So you see, I put some points about that there. Is that, you know, the lead acid, obviously they're not something, lead acid, they're on here, but they're not something you're going to see in an EV conversion at this point. They just weren't very good. They're heavy, wear out fast, and you don't get that much range. I mean, typical EV conversions, like done in the 90s and so, the 1990s were, 25-mile range at the most. It was, they weren't very practical at all. We're using these modern lithium ion batteries or Tesla battery packs. The 100-mile mark is easily breakable now. And there are people getting, up to 250 miles in a converted classic car using mostly using the Tesla modules. But I do have one to mention though. So the thing about warranty, these Tesla modules, Tesla's not selling these modules directly. It means you're buying them used. You're buying them used, it means you generally can't offer a warranty on it. So if you're looking, in an EV conversion business, and your concern is that you need something reproducible. You're trying to put together a kit. You're trying to build you're trying to do a production line of cars. You probably wouldn't choose these because you'd want something new that you have a more predictable supply and you have something you can offer a warranty on. So all these things come into factors. The most popular battery EV conversions right now are the Tesla modules because they're available, and most type of EV conversions have a very limited warranty because they're considered more of a boutique than a standard like OEM manufactured vehicle. So I said it's the little things. It's all these things. I mean, when you're trying to design this is why it's important to find. This is why I would always recommend it's important to find a kit to start with. It might be cheaper to put them together yourself, but you'll spend the time is valuable in trying to figure out which of these things work together. So you have a charger. You have one of the most important things that some people do leave out, and that's a typo on my part. It's supposed to be battery management system, but the battery management system, even the throttle pedal, DC converter. This is what they use to drive the accessories, to power the headlights, turn signals. Your normal wiring that's in a vehicle, your chassis wiring is powered through that. It's also what keeps your 12-volt battery charged. Battery boxes, most first-time builders will spend the most of their time on a conversion constructing battery boxes. They're very complicated. Especially with like a Tesla module that wasn't designed to be enclosed in a box other than a Tesla battery pack. Cooling, another consideration. I mean, I don't want to go through every point here, because these are a lot of details in these slides I'm sure will be available. So it's the EV, the cooling and things like that are thermal management for batteries is to keep them, operating within safe temperatures. It goes in line with your battery management system. And these are the big advances, and Tesla's pushed this really far. The big advances is with the thermal management. It's what's taken these cars, EV, OEM EVs, from being something that had poor, a lot of battery degradation to batteries that last a very long time. I mean, typically OEM batteries are lasting a very long time now, even in the aftermarket, even the used market. And the other things mentioned here is obviously charging. I mentioned charging receptacles before. That's very important that you can charge your car. I think I just hit the button several. So let's see. So anyway, I won't spend a lot of time here, but I just want to give. So this is how we started. We started by choosing a vehicle to convert. I said we're going to take this. We picked a vehicle that checked those boxes. And I don't know how many are familiar with this, but this was called a Subaru Brat. They were a vehicle produced from 79 to 94, imported from Japan. They were very popular in the United States, still very popular in Australia, under a different name, even though they're not manufacturing them anymore. So yeah, we chose this as a vehicle. Obviously, we painted it and did all these things. If you were looking at an EV conversion business, this is something that a lot of shops I think would choose to avoid, and for good reason. Painting vehicles and doing this other stuff. From a practical standpoint of revenue, it makes more sense to have vehicles come in that are already painted. The best advice I can ever give customers when they're looking for these is, after the list of criteria I had before, is that the car be in the best shape possible before it arrives at our shop. That way we can just focus on converting the car. We're not focusing on rust repair, paint, things like this. And these are the problems you're going to run into the Classic. And it's why this phase one is going to be more limited, or the limited audience, right? Because you have cars that aren't for everyday use being driven by everyone. So yeah, we chose this vehicle. It checks the boxes, and it's also, as I mentioned before, to get into this, I firmly do believe the best ways to get into the EV conversion business is to build a car or partner with a shop that can build a car, that you can get something done, that you have to advertise, show that you can do this. There's other fields in this where you can work on providing kits and things like that. But even so, even companies, the big companies like Electric GT that are putting out kits, they are building cars with their kits. They're building a car, they're doing prototypes, they're testing their kits before they ever leave their hands and go to, before they're ever sold. Very important that they're producing a product that they know works when it lands in the customer's hands. Just some more pictures of this. So I talked before about the straightforward method. And I'll just note the picture on the right, the caveat, those are before we seal the battery boxes. Obviously, you want them to be waterproof, things like that. You want them to be safe. This was a demonstration photo just to say, here's where the batteries fit. It took a better photo without boxes than it did with, but it's not the recommended approach. But you can see the motor we made an adapter to adapt the motor to the transmission, maintaining the four-wheel drive, maintaining gears. Practically speaking, you don't have to shift gears. You leave it in one gear. You drive around mostly like an automatic. Like I said, no special instructions. You just drive it like you would drive a regular car. But the transmission is what provides that coupling. We didn't have to design, couplers to go to the wheels. We didn't have to design hubs, half shafts, any of the other parts. We were able to reuse all the OEM parts. And that's one of our philosophies we're following right now, is make the least amount of changes possible to a vehicle to make it electric. And I think as we enter the other phases, I think that rule will still apply. I think when later model cars start to become cars that are converted, you'll want to make sure that you're not having to completely engineer a solution. You'd be looking for a solution that you can drop in, changing the least amount of things possible. So if you're looking for a market there's going to be a huge market in that event at some point, designing systems that can be plug and play in vehicles versus, frankly, what we're doing now in this industry is we are designing a lot of things. We're having to become experts at CAD, experts at electrical engineering. We're having to dip into a lot of fields where as a software engineer is new, to get into this, and you're having to outsource some of it to find people who do have the expertise to help you to make sure you're doing things safely. And that's another whole subject for safety that I won't even go into. Is that there's actually I'll mention that on the last slide. We'll keep going here. So just more pictures. You see there's the drivetrain laid out. And I do this because if you're interested in this, these are the kind of things you'll be doing. You'll have customer cars in there. You'll be laying the drivetrains out, designing it, figuring out how to make it all work together. Right now, we only have a few cars that are repeatable. We have a few models of cars that if one could come in, we have every part on the shelf that we can do that car and we can turn it out. But as cars are so different between manufacturers, between years, even the same type of car, like a Volkswagen Beetle, changes every year. So you have to, it's difficult to make a one size fits all kit. And I tend to think that's going to be forever. I think even by 2030, 2035, when this is more common, it will still be, there'll still be universal kits and you'll have to figure out how to make them work. Just some more. That one picture is just that charging in a charging station. That was the point of that picture. The other point of this slide is what will grow a business in EV conversion is finished cars. taking cars to car shows, showing them, taking them to car shows, entering them, having people look at them, it generates word of mouth, it generates more business. Also, the fact when you take these cars and they generate business and they generate attention, it will get more people interested in EV conversions. And the more people are interested in EV conversions, obviously it speeds up the process. You have to be somewhat of an evangelist of this. You have to live it and breathe it that EV conversions are the way to go. This is something we should be doing, and being able to provide counter arguments to the most common arguments like, the batteries only last a few years, you can't drive it a few miles, things that you'll hear a lot. In the classic car industry, one of the things you hear is that you're destroying the vehicle. You're ruining the value of the vehicle because you're taking the original engine out. And you need to be, it's these kind of things you'll need to be aware of, that these are the things people will mention to you. But at the same time, you need to be prepared to say, hey, these cars are now reliable. Every time I turn the key, I can drive it wherever I want to. I'm pushing the EV industry forward, and I'm keeping these cars on the road without emissions. So I think I'm really close to time. So I'm going to but if you look at what next, like if you're trying to start an EV conversion business, what's next? Car shows. I mentioned that. Car shows are very big, especially like the trade shows like SEMA, or there's a lot of very big car shows, especially California has a lot of car shows that have a heavy attendance. And the more quality conversions they see, if they see EV conversion, classic cars that are quality conversions, they'll become more interested in it. And that's what will keep this going. Conferences. We speak at conferences, we attend conferences of other interested builders. These allow you to make connections. You make connections with other people in the industry. You see their projects, you get ideas. I mean, it's just like this business is like every other business. The more exposure you have to other ideas, it'll grow your ideas. Social media, one of those things that, obviously spreading, it's part of the evangelism, as I mentioned. It's you want to push this message. You want to say, hey, this is good stuff. Look at these cars. Look at these cars. Look at what we're doing. We're attending shows. We're driving them across country. We're doing so reliably. And it's when you open the hood or the trunk where the components are, does it look nice? Does it look tidy? Does it look like something someone would want? And those kind of things, like making it appealing visually, is another one of those things that pushes this and makes more people want to join in. Suppliers, that's where I go into kits. Initially I would advise to find someone who sells a kit, buy that kit, use that kit for the first one. You can branch out to other suppliers later, but when during prototyping phase, you want to spend less time figuring out how to do it and more time like actually doing the work or partnering with the shop, having those supplies on hand to where they can just get started. Not having to reinvent the wheel. Certifications. This is one that's dicey right now. There are places such as Legacy EV that are offering certifications, and I know these things are being pushed to eventually have requirement of certifications to do EV conversion. As of now, there's no such requirements in the U.S. This can and probably will change at some point. So need to keep the eye on the horizon for what type of certifications may be required someday, and make sure that you are aware of those if they're coming. And the last is hiring. This is not a field where there's a lot of people doing it. This isn't your typical mechanic shop or classic car conversion shop, software shop. It's none of those things. This is a blend of several different types of specialties all coming into one place. So when you're hiring, you have to put together kind of list. We look for mainly troubleshooters. We look for people who, if they came from software, they came from mechanical, were they the ones solving the problems? Were they the ones who were able to figure out and test and troubleshoot and solve the problem? And that's it for my presentation. If you have any questions.
Okay, we didn't have any questions so far. So if anyone has questions for James, you can type them to Q&A, and even after the webinar, we'll try to answer them and then communicate through email then.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you so much, James. Okay, so for our last session, we have Dr. Tae Lee. He is the director of Korea Automotive Technology Institute's Premium Vehicle R&D Center. Before serving as the director of K-Tech, he was a researcher at Samsung Electronics and Yokohama National University of Japan. So.
안녕하세요. 한국자동차연구원의 이태입니다. 앞서 말씀하셨던 분들이 다 이제 영어로 말씀하셨는데, 이제 한국말로 말씀을 드려야 돼서 좀 제가 죄송하게 생각을 하고요. 일단 뭐 어떻게든지 뭐 영어로 해도 되겠지만은 이게 국내 법이나 이런 것들이 관련이 돼 있어서 막상 발표 자료에도 있지만은 이게 제가 오역을 할 가능성도 굉장히 좀 많은 부분이 있어서 부득이하게 이제 한국말로 이제 말씀을 드려야 될 것 같습니다. 네, 다음. 네, 제가 오늘 말씀드릴 컨텐츠는 보시는 것과 같고요. 앞서 이제 클로이 씨가 소개를 해주셨지만 저는 이제 고려대학교에서 이제 학위를 했고 이제 보신 것과 같이 이제 현재 한국자동차연구원에서 이제 센터장으로 근무를 하고 있습니다. 다음. 예. 먼저 이제 개조전기차의 정의를 이제 말씀드려야 될 것 같은데 앞에 이제 제임스 씨가 말씀하셨던 이제 여러 가지 얘기를 좀 간단하게 이제 좀 정리를 하면은 먼저 이제 노후 차량을 확보를 하고 그 다음에 거기에 이제 달려있던 내연기관 부품을 탈거를 하고 그 다음에 전기차 부품을 장착을 하고 그게 이제 결국은 최종적으로 이제 전기차 개조로 이루어지는 건데 이렇게 간단하게 나누면은 이제 굉장히 진짜 간단한 부분인데 앞서 제임스 씨가 말씀하신 것처럼 이제 고려할 부분들이 이제 굉장히 많이 있습니다. 네, 다음. 예, 그래서 프로세스를 이제 보면은 처음에 이제 내연기관 부품들을 이제 탈거를 하고 그다음에 차량 프레임 같은 것들은 도면화하는 단계가 되고요. 그다음에 거기에 이제 들어갈 부품들을 이제 설계를 하고 옛날 차량 같은 경우는 크게 상관이 없는데 이제 최신 차량으로 오면서 차가 너무 이제 똑똑해져서 BMS나 VCU나 CAN, TMS 같은 것들이 이제 시스템 단위의 그런 것들이 이제 많이 생깁니다. 그래서 이런 것들을 또 개조 전기차에 맞게 이제 다시 또 설계를 해야 되는 부분들이 또 생기고요. 그 다음에 이제 차량별로 이제 배터리 팩 같은 것들도 이제 사이즈에 맞게 또 제작을 해야 되고 그 다음에 이제 내연기관에서 바뀌었으니까 관련된 파워 트레인 같은 것들도 부품이 제작을 해야 되고 그리고 기타 하네스나 와이어링 하네스나 이런 것들에 대한 설계도 또 해야 되고 그 다음에 마지막으로 이 차가 제대로 장착이 제대로 됐는지 하는 것들에 대해서 최종적으로 이제 점검을 해서 이제 전기차가 완성이 됩니다. 네, 다음은 이제 구조 변환의 부품의 범위에 대해서 이제 표시를 해놓은 건데요. 파워트레인, 그 다음에 전지나 인버터, 그리고 기구 부품, 그리고 모터, 그리고 변속기 이런 것들이 이제 변환되어야 되는 이제 부품들의 내용이 되겠습니다. 네, 다음. 앞서서 이제 제임스 씨가 여러 가지를 말씀해 주셨는데 가장 큰 게 저는 이제 좀 한국의 정책적인 부분들에 대해서 좀 힘을 실어서 좀 말씀드리고 싶은데요. 먼저 이제 그 이제 필요성에 대해서 말씀드리겠습니다. 한국은 5년마다 한 번씩 그 자동차 기본 정책이라는 것을 세우는데요. 그 정책에 맞춰서 이제 자동차 산업이 어떻게 한국 안에서 이제 그 자동차 산업이 어떻게 발전을 해 나가야 되는지의 계획을 정부 산업통상자원부의 주도로 이제 세우고 있습니다. 그런 부분들에 대해서 나라에서 이제 탄소 중립이 어떻게 보면 가장 큰 목표고 그것들을 이제 몇 년도까지 이제 친환경차로 전부 다 바꾸겠다라는 이제 계획을 수립을 하는데요. 다른 나라도 마찬가지로 이제 여러 가지 이제 그런 탄소 중립 정책에 따라서 전기 자동차 관련해서 이제 정책이나 지원 내용이 있고요. 이 왼쪽에서 보시면 이제 그런 나라별로 이제 있는데 그리고 오른쪽에 보시면은 뭐 최대 뭐 한 2050년까지 그 내연기관을 퇴출시키겠다라는 야심찬 계획들을 이제 세우고 있습니다. 그러면은 과연 예를 들면은 이제 그 2035년까지 서울 한국에서는 내연기관을 퇴출하겠다고 했는데 그러면은 그 신차 기준으로 이거는 이제 얘기입니다. 그러면 현재 돌아다니고 있는 내연기관 차는 과연 어떻게 할 거냐라는 게 이제 어떻게 보면 화두가 될 거고요. 다음 그 관련해 가지고 2021년까지 이제 한국에서는 전기차가 뭐 23만 대 정도 이제 누적 보급이 됐는데 그 아까 말씀드렸던 친환경 자동차 기본계획에서는 그 2030년까지 국내에 이제 300만 대를 누적 보급을 하겠다라는 목표를 세웠어요. 근데 아래 왼쪽에 보시겠지만은 현재 정부에서 세운 목표가 300만 대인데 근데 2030년까지 신차 출시로 보면은 270만 대밖에는 그 목표 달성을 할 수 없는 그러한 상황이 됩니다. 그래서 나머지 30만 대는 어떻게 할 거냐라는 게 이제 그 어떻게 보면 고민이 시작이 되는 거고요. 그거에 따라서 이제 그 개조 전기차, 그 EV 컨버전에 대해서 어떤 필요성이 부각이 되고 있습니다. 그 오른쪽에서 보시면은 뭐 금전적으로 봤을 때도 동급의 중고 전기차 대비해서 한 43% 정도 그 저렴한 개조 전기차가 구매가 가능하고 그다음에 한국에서 기준으로 한 1,850만 원 원화로 1,850만 원 정도 이제 저희가 이제 비용을 산출했는데 여기에 이제 보조금이 그 나라에서는 한 600만 원 정도 그리고 각 지자체별로 뭐 상이하겠지만은 전라남도 같은 경우는 한 850만 원 정도가 보조금이 이제 돼서 최소 기준으로 보면은 한 400만 원 정도로 자기 차는 개조가 가능하다라는 이제 상술적인 그 계산이 됩니다. 네, 다음. 네. 계속 이제 제가 법적인 말씀을 좀 드리는데요. 그 한국의 자동차 관리법이라는 게 굉장히 그 시비한 법이어서 굉장히 그 맞추기도 힘들고 굉장히 복잡하게 이제 얽혀 있습니다. 그래서 이제 그 개조 전기차가 어떻게 보면은 자동차 관리법에 저촉을 받는 그 현황이고요. 그 중에서도 그 2013년부터 이제 그 개정된 자동차 관리법에 의해서 튜닝이라는 그 용어가 이제 자동차 관리법에 이제 들어오게 됐는데 튜닝이라는 게 이제 결국은 자동차를 손대면 거기서부터 이제 튜닝인데 거기에 이제 여러 가지 이제 법령이 제척이 됩니다. 먼저 이제 국토교통부에서 가지고 있는 자동차 관리법에 보면은 자동차 구조 장치의 변경 같은 경우는 구조 변경 불가한 사항, 그리고 승인 시 가능한 사항, 그리고 승인 없이 가능한 사항이 이제 나타나 있는데요. 이런 것들에 대해서 지금 이제 개조 전기차 같은 경우는 그 승인 시 구조 변경 불가 또는 승인 시 가능한 사항으로 지금 한정되어 있습니다. 그리고 이제 환경부 같은 쪽에서 보면은 배출가스 허용 기준이나 아니면 소음 진동 허용 기준 같은 것들이 그 개조 전기차를 이제 했을 때 자동차를 개조했을 때 이제 저촉되는 그러한 이제 법령이 되겠는데요. 제가 이제 튜닝을 말씀드리는 게 결국 그 EV 컨버전이 결국은 이제 튜닝의 하위 개념으로 이제 한국에서는 인식이 되고 있기 때문에 그런 것들이 이제 튜닝에 대해서 좀 더 알아야 되는 그런 상황이 되겠습니다. 다음. 그래서 한국과 이제 이제 선진국이라고 하면 이제 뭐 좀 그렇지만 어쨌든 다른 나라의 튜닝 선진국에 대해서 이제 비교를 해보면은 미국 같은 경우는 튜닝 관련 법규에 보면은 주로 이제 저쪽 되는 게 FMVSS나 EPA 같은 것들이 이제 그 관련 법인데 저희가 이제 판단하기로는 이제 그 환경 기준이나 안전 기준에 저촉만 없으면 그 자유롭게 이제 튜닝이 가능한 그러한 이제 미국이 가지고 있는 법이고요. 그리고 자기 인증 제도를 하지만은 그 자체적으로 그러니까 자기가 튜닝을 했을 때 그 안전에 대해서 스스로 검증을 해야 되는 그러한 상황입니다. 한국 같은 경우는 반대로 법이 굉장히 복잡을 해서 그 법을 만족시켜야 튜닝을 할 수 있다라는 개념이라면은 미국은 자유롭게 튜닝을 하되 그 안전 기준을 자기가 입증을 해야 되는 그런 이제 좀 반대적인 그런 법의 관점이 있고요. 다음. 독일 같은 경우는 AB나 AG나 같은 데서 이제 상세 법규를 운영을 하고 있고 그 별도로 튜닝 부품에 대해서 이제 인증 제도를 운영을 하고 있습니다. 소비자 관점에서 보면은 그 비인증 제품을 장착할 때 승인 과정이 필요를 하기 때문에 승인 부품들에 대한 선호도가 좀 높은 편이고요. 그래서 우리나라랑 조금 이제 비슷한 느낌의 그런 이제 법의 관점을 가지고 있고 일본 같은 경우도 보면은 뭐 물론 이제 튜닝만을 위한 법규가 따로 없지만은 그 세부 사항까지 이제 정확히 명시가 돼 있어서 이것도 일본도 역시 우리나라랑 조금 비슷한 관점의 그 법 관점을 이제 가지고 있는 상황입니다. 소비자 입장에서 봤을 때도 기준 자체가 이제 엄격하기 때문에 그 튜닝 부품에 대한 신뢰도가 좀 이제 높은 그러한 이제 상황이 될 것 같습니다. 네, 다음. 그래서 앞서 말씀드린 것들을 좀 정리를 해보면은 개조전기차 관련해서 이제 국내나 이제 해외 이제 다른 나라들의 이제 비교를 해놓은 건데요. 가장 큰 게 구조 변경 이제 개조전기차는 결국은 이제 구조 변경에 대한 것들이기 때문에 이런 것들이 각국별로 이제 달라서 우리나라 그러니까 미국이나 아니면 해외에서 이제 그 EV 컨버전에 대해서 좀 이제 어떻게 보면은 우리나라보다 앞서갈 수 있는 그런 법적 환경이 좀 구성이 되어 있다라고 이제 말씀드리겠습니다. 한국 같은 경우는 뭐 기술적인 부분보다 법령적인 부분 때문에 조금 이제 이런 그 EV 컨버전 산업에 대해서 이제 크기가 조금 어려운 환경이다라고 이제 말씀드릴 수 있겠습니다. 네, 다음. 이것도 이제 말씀드렸던 내용이고요. 네, 다음. 이제 그 해외, 그러니까 개조전기차 현황을 보면은 뭐 GM이나 아니면 폭스바겐이나 아니면 이런 데서 이제 다양한 그 EV 컨버전 차량을 내놨고요. 다음. 마찬가지로 뭐 이것도 계속 이제 해외 사례들을 이제 말씀드리는 거고요. 다음. 예, 또 다음. 앞서서는 이제 그 튜닝에 대해서 이제 해외 법령들을 이제 말씀드렸으면은 이제는 좀 더 그 관점을 좀 좁혀서 이제 EV 컨버전에 대해서 이제 말씀드리도록 하겠습니다. 그 관련해서 그 미국에 대한 규정은 보면은 저희가 이제 조사한 바에 의하면 그 4,500kg 이하의 중량이고 그다음에 48V 이상의 전력 시스템 그리고 최대 속도로 봤을 때 40km/h의 규격을 만족할 것 그리고 모터나 배터리 등으로 인해서 중량 증가에 따른 기존 차체의 안전성 확보, 그리고 전기차를 개조했을 때 연비나 충돌 안전성 규격을 만족할 것, 그리고 뭐 기타 다른 것들은 이제 아래쪽을 보시면 되겠고요. 그 연방 정부에서는 이제 500에서 6,000달러 또는 이제 개조 비용의 한 50% 정도를 개조 보조금으로 지원을 하고 4,000불 한도로 이제 10%의 세금 감면 혜택을 적용해서 그 전기차로 개조하는 거를 적극적으로 지원을 하고 있는 걸로 저희가 이제 파악을 하고 있습니다. 예, 다음. 뭐 미국에 계시면은 더 잘 아실는지 모르겠는데 저희가 조사한 바로 의하면은 주마다 이제 그 보조금이 틀려가지고 오클라호마 같은 경우는 나 아니면 웨스트 버지니아 같은 데는 뭐 개조 비용의 50%까지 이제 그 보조금을 주는 형태로 그 장려를 하고 있는 그러한 상황이 되겠습니다. 예, 다음. 유럽 같은 경우는 저희가 조사한 바에 이제 프랑스랑 영국을 좀 조사를 했는데요. 프랑스 같은 경우는 5년 이상 등록된 차량으로서 주행 안전성이 확보된 차로 기존 중량 대비해서 20% 이상 초과되면 안 되는 한에서 이제 개조를 장려를 하고 있고요. 개조 전기차에 대해서는 개인한테는 최대 7,000유로, 그리고 기업에는 최대 5,000유로 정도 보조금을 주는 걸로 저희가 파악을 하고 있습니다. 영국 같은 경우는 그 영국의 그 공도 차량 규정이라고 이제 뭐 하던데 그거를 이제 만족을 해야 되고 40년 이상 된 클래식카를 제외를 하고는 매년 MOT 시험을 통과를 해야 되는데 이 MOT 시험 같은 게 이제 그 차량 안전 그리고 도로 주행성, 배기가스 배출 같은 것들에 대해서 이제 연례로 이제 정기 검사를 하는 그러한 내용이 되겠습니다. 그런 것들에 대해서 이제 만족을 하면 자유롭게 이제 개조를 할 수 있는 상황으로 파악이 되고 있고요. 그 다음에 이제 그 승용차랑 밴에 한정을 해서 전기차 구매 보조금의 그 지원, 그 보조금에 대해서 이제 지원 대상을 포함을 하고 있습니다. 네, 다음. 이제 해외 사례는 그랬고, 이제 국내 한국에 대한 사례를 보면은, 뭐 여러 가지 이제 그 개조에 대해서 물론 법령이 이제 완비되지 않았지만은 여러 이제 그 스타트업 기업들이 이제 개조를 위해서 이제 노력을 하고 있고요. 다음. 여기는 제가 이제 그 법령이라서 그 번역을 하기에는 조금 그 오역이 될 수도 있고 해가지고 이제 그 한글로 이제 표현을 해놨는데요. 관련 법에 대해서 이제 있습니다. 자동차 관리법, 그러니까 EV 컨버전이 결국 지배를 받는 법이 자동차 관리법인데 그 자동차 관리법의 제 55조에 보면은 이러한 이제 내용이 있고요. 그 하위 규정에 보면은 자동차 튜닝에 관한 규정이 있습니다. 그 오른쪽 표에 보시면은 안전성 확인 시험 항목이라고 있는데 이게 이제 총 10가지에 대해서 이제 시험 항목을 이제 그 표현을 해놨고요. 요것들을 다 만족을 해야 이제 승인이 되는 그러한 내용입니다. 다음 장. 예. 그 안전성 확인 항목에 대해서 이제 나타난 게 요 10가지가 지금 보시는 화면인데요. 요것들을 다 만족을 하는 시험을 하려면은 총 저희가 이제 간접 추산해서 한 2억 정도 이제 소요가 됩니다. 사실 차 한 대를 개조를 할 때 2억을 주고 개조를 물론 그 개조 비용을 제외한 이제 승인 비용이 2억 정도 든다는 건데 그거를 감당하고 이제 그 개조를 할 만한 사람들은 없겠죠. 그래서 법적으로 개조가 허용이 안 되는 건 아닌데 할 수 있는 상황이 여건이 안 된다라고 이제 한국의 상황을 이제 말씀드릴 수 있겠습니다. 네, 다음. 네, 다음. 이게 이제 저희가 계속 이제 안전성 확인 시험 항목들을 저희가 이제 표현을 해놨던 것들이고요. 네, 다음. 네, 다음. 네, 다음. 네. 그래서 뭐 앞서 굉장히 많은 시험들을 거쳐야 이제 그 EV 컨버전을 할 수 있는 한국의 이제 환경인데, 결국은 뭐 그런 환경을 포함을 해서 이제 말씀드리면은 개조전기차 같은 경우는 이제 결국 모터나 배터리들이, 엔진은 물론 띄어내긴 하지만은 모터나 배터리 등이 무게가 굉장히 크기 때문에 그런 것들에 대해서 중량이 증가를 하고, 그다음에 중량 증가에 따라서 차체나 샤시 등의 이제 무리가 발생을 하겠죠. 그것들에 대해서 그 자동차관리법 내에서 주행시험의 세부 절차가 이제 미비한 상황입니다. 그래서 그런 것들이 결국은 이제 한국에서 그 EV 컨버전 산업이 활성화되기 위해서 해결해야 될 그 당면 과제가 되겠고요. 그것들에 따라서 그 저희가 이제 현재 지금 제가 이제 하고 있는 일이 개조전기차 관련한 인증 기준을 마련하는 게 이제 어떻게 보면은 현재 그 가장 큰 한국에서의 당면 과제라고 할 수 있겠습니다. 다음. 그래서 이제 저희가 지금 앞서 말씀드렸던 여러 가지 이제 규제들에 대해서 한국에서는 그 규제 자유 특구, 그러니까 뭐 라는 것들을 제도를 이제 운영을 하고 있는데요. 이게 어떤 의미냐면은 전 국가적으로 이제 약간 전국에서 규제가 되어 있는 것들을 일단 그 인큐베이팅 형태로 일정 지역을 정해서 그 지역 안에서는 이 규제를 해소를 해보자. 그리고 이게 그 지역 안에서 이제 시험을 해보고 괜찮으면 전국적으로 확대를 해보자 라는 개념으로 이제 시작을 하는 건데요. 저희는 이제 내년 1월부터 이제 EV 컨버전에 대해서 이제 규제 특구를 전남 영암에서 이제 진행을 합니다. 뭐 2년 정도 이제 저희가 지정 기간을 받았고, 이 지역 안에 있으면 그 앞서 말씀드렸던 여러 가지 규제들에 대해서 이제 그러니까 그 저항을 안 받고 이제 여러 가지 이제 그 EV 컨버전을 할 수 있는 환경이 되고, 그 여기서 이제 그 안전성이 입증이 되면 전국적으로 확대할 수 있는 그러한 상황이 됩니다. 네, 다음. 이제 그 세부 내용에 대해서 말씀드리겠는데요. 앞서 말씀드렸지만은 그러니까 자동차 한 대를 이제 개조를 하려면은 그 한 2억 정도의 이제 인증 비용이 들어가는데, 그래서 한국 현황에서는 뭐 해외에 있는 그 사항처럼 뭐 클래식카를 개조한다든지 이런 경우는 그 법적으로는 괜찮지만은 그 사업성이 굉장히 이제 떨어지는 현황이 됩니다. 그래서 저희가 타겟으로 하는 거는 가장 많은 그러니까 한국에서 가장 많이 팔리는 차를 컨버전을 한 대를 해놓으면 그거를 이제 준용을 해가지고, 그래서 다른 차로 이제 그 확대할 수 있는 그러한 이제 상황을 만들기 위해서 대표 차종을 한국에서 가장 많이 팔리는 총 이제 9대를 선정을 해서 그 9대에 대해서 최적 안전 중량을 도출하기 위해서 소형은 150kg에서 250kg, 그리고 중형 대형이랑 그다음 화물 같은 경우는 300kg부터 450kg까지 차종별로 이제 중량 구분을 해서 그 실증을 하는 그런 상황이고요. 그 대상 근거로 보면은 아래쪽에 이제 자동차관리법을 저희가 그 해놨는데요. 이제 55조에 보면은 경소형 자동차의 경우 차량 중량이 120kg을 초과하는 경우나 아니면 중형차의 차량 중량이 200kg을 초과하는 경우는 튜닝에 대한 승인이 안 된다라고 이제 규정이 되어 있습니다. 이 부분을 이제 개선하기 위해서 저희가 최대 450kg까지 그 중량을 증가해서 주행 실증을 하고요. 그 다음에 예, 그렇습니다. 다음. 그래서 뭐 실증 추진에 대한 계획과 목표를 이제 보시면 처음에 저희가 뭐 바로 이제 할 수는 없으니까 뭐 전산 모의 해석을 통해서 시뮬레이션을 통해서 구조 안전성을 평가를 하고, 그 다음에 그 실험실 안에서 이제 차량 부품이나 차체 안전성 평가를 하고, 그리고 실제 공도로 나가서 3,000km의 주행 실증을 하고 이에 따라서 전기 개조차 주행 안전성 기준을 마련하는 형태로 저희가 이제 진행을 하고요. 그 아래쪽에 보시면은 그 세부 사항들에 대해서 저희가 이제 실제로 실천하려고 하는 그러한 내용에 대해서 이제 나타냈습니다. 예, 다음. 기대 효과로서는 이제 앞서 말씀드렸지만 계속 한국은 그 자동차 관리법이 굉장히 시비한 법이라서 뭐 이걸 해소하는 게 어떻게 보면 가장 큰 초점인데요. 관련해서 법도 법이지만은 결국은 업체들이 그 단기, 중기, 장기 이제 그 플랜을 세워서 이에 따라서 이제 발전하려고 하는 그러한 이제 그림을 이제 나타냈습니다. 네, 다음. 네, 그리고 뭐 이것도 이제 앞서 보여드렸던 그림하고 좀 비슷한 그림인데요. 가장 큰 게 일단 사업화가 가장 중요하니까 저희가 이제 처음으로 타겟으로 이제 삼은 게 결국 이제 한국에서 가장 많이 팔리는 뭐 소나타, K5, 그랜저 이런 중형 세단들이 실제로 동남아나 아니면은 서남아시아 쪽으로 이제 수출이 많이 되고 있습니다. 네, 그런 차량에 대해서 컨버전을 해서 수출하는 방법. 그리고 한국의 이제 택배 문화가 굉장히 잘 돼 있는데 그 택배 화물에 대해서 운송 차량 같은 것들을 이제 컨버전하는 형태. 그리고 운전면허 학원에 대한 노후 차량 같은 것들이 저희 이제 타겟 사업이 돼 있고요. 저희가 이게 타겟을 정하는 이유가 앞서 말씀드렸지만 차 한 대를 인증하는데 비용이 엄청나기 때문에 그 가장 많이 팔리고 사람들이 많이 쓰는 차를 한 대 인증을 받아 놓으면 같은 형태의 컨버전이 계속적으로 이제 그 추가 비용을 들이지 않고 인증을 받을 수 있기 때문에 이런 이제 사업화 대상으로 이제 정했고요. 그리고 이제 요게 이제 잘 되면은 이제 두 번째로 말씀드렸던 이제 클래식카나 캠핑카 같은 것들이 법령 개정과 더불어서 이제 그 다양화할 수 있는 그런 사례가 될 것으로 저희가 판단을 하고 있습니다. 다음. 요것도 이제 앞서 말씀드렸던 내용이 좀 이제 그 반복해서 이제 말씀드리는 내용일 것 같은데요. 결국 이제 중고 차량이랑 택배 화물 차량, 운전면허 시험 차량 같은 것들을 타겟으로 해가지고 2030년까지는 한 우리나라 돈으로 한 1,200억 정도, 1,000억, 1,200억 정도의 이제 사업화 시장을 저희가 전망을 하고 있고요. 결국은 제조 전기차를 제작 의뢰를 개인이 의뢰를 한다기보다는 컨버전하는 업체가 있어서 그 업체가 어떻게 보면은 그 같은 차량을 컨버전하는 걸 계속 찍어내는 형태의 사업이 한국에서는 그나마 좀 유효하다라고 이제 말씀드릴 수 있겠습니다. 예, 다음. 네. 그리고 이제 앞으로 이제 봤을 때 저희가 이제 국토교통부랑 같이 이제 좀 구비를 하고 있는 게 이거는 이제 미국에서는 제가 알기로는 이제 하고 있는 걸로 알고 있는데 그 일종의 이제 개조 컨버전 키트를 이제 만들어서 차량별로 제작 매뉴얼을 만들면 일반 한국은 이제 그 게러지 문화가 없기 때문에 개인이 이제 장착할 수 있는 그런 환경은 안 되지만 그 정비업소에 가서 자기가 원하면은 이런 개조 키트를 가지고 정비업소에서 이제 바로 개조를 할 수 있는 형태까지 저희가 이제 추진을 해보려고 하고 있습니다. 네, 다음. 그리고 이제 두 번째로는 이제 그 개조 전기차, 그러니까 EV 컨버전이 이제 고성능화되어 있는 필요성이 있는데요. 특히나 한국 같은 경우는 좀 더 그런 것 같은데 이제 그 단순히 이제 자동차를 친환경차로 이제 바꾸는 거에 대해서 이제 관심이 있는 게 아니라 결국은 그 주행거리나 아니면은 개인의 그 비용 같은 것들이 이제 굉장히 어떻게 보면 문제가 많이 되고 있습니다. 그래서 결국 이제 자동차 가격에서는 이제 배터리 가격이 가장 큰 문제이기 때문에 이런 것들을 싸게 그리고 신차에 비할 만큼 물론 이제 실차를 뭐 계획된 전기차만큼의 이제 주행거리나 성능은 나오지 않겠지만은 비슷한 수준으로 맞출 수 있도록 그 컨버전 저는 이제 컨버전 키트라고 얘기하는데 컨버전 키트를 고성능화하는데 조금 이제 초점을 맞춰서 저희가 일을 하고 있습니다. 네, 다음으로 그 말씀을 마치도록 하겠습니다. 예, 경청해 주셔서 감사합니다.
저희가 그 질문이 2개 있는데요.
네네.
So EV retrofit is different than EV. 이건 아니. 죄송합니다. Have you done a EV conversion on any 2000 vehicles, or is it best to try only on classic cars? 이거는 제임스님께 해주셨고 발표자도 받으실 수. 네, 이게
네, 이거는 뭐 공유하셔도 될 것 같습니다. 예.
네, 감사합니다.
네.
So last, Professor Sam Min will now close the symposium for us.
Thank you, everyone, for attending the 2022 KAEA Symposium. I hope you learned something new, something valuable for your business. We'll post our presentation slide on our website, www.kaenergy.org. And please visit the website, and we'll send you a reminder. And if you have any question, please let us know. And if you want to have any feedback, please post your comments on our website. Thank you, everyone, again, and have a great day, those in Korea, and good evening and good night, those in the United States. Thank you.